What's up, everyone? We're back again tonight for part 2 of our Hollow Knight series. Last week, my better half introduced you to the world of Hallownest, and we discussed the importance of vessels in the Bible. She also hinted that we are also vessels. So let's expand on that tonight. But first, a brief recap. A long time ago, a godlike creature called the Radiance ruled over bugs. She had a perfectly ordered society because she wields power over dreams. Her subjects were all connected to her in a hive mind, and they functioned on instinct alone. Then, another ancient being, known as the Pale King, appeared. He granted the bugs intelligence and independent thought. He quickly erased the memory of the Radiance from society. However, the Radiance began to slip back into the people's minds through their dreams. Over time, she was a real threat once more. This time, though, a powerful infection has begun to spread across Hallownest. As bugs fight off her influence, they produce this infection, and over time, bugs succumb to her will. The Pale King determined that the only solution was to seal the Radiance away, by locking her in the mind of a creature that has no will to break. Thus he began a series of experiments to create an unfeeling and unthinking creature. You, the player character, the Knight, are one of such thousands of creatures. You were deemed unworthy by the Pale King, however, and were tossed aside, left to rot in the abyss. But enough recapping. Let's begin tonight's Devo proper with 2 Timothy chapter 2, verses 20 and 21. This is going to be our central verse for the night, and it will keep popping up throughout the message. In a large house, there are articles not only of gold and silver, but also of wood and clay. Some are for special purposes, and some for common use. Those who cleanse themselves from the latter will be instruments for special purposes, made holy, useful to the master, and prepared to do any good work. As Christians, Jesus redeemed us and made us holy. That means we are set apart and are meant to be used for His purpose. Anybody can do something common, but not just anybody can do something special. Christians are supposed to obey the commands of Jesus. There is confirmation of this in John 14:15. If you love me, obey my commandments. Now let's remind ourselves of what the Knight was meant to hold. The Knight needed to be completely empty, or hollow, so that he could hold all of the Radiance and her infection within his body. So if the Knight was deemed unworthy, did the Pale King ever succeed? Did he manage to create a perfectly empty being, devoid of any emotion or will? The answer is yes. Yes, he did. This perfect vessel was dubbed the Hollow Knight, and it's this character that the game is named after. Once the Pale King had his perfect vessel, he used it to completely seal away the Radiance. Time passed, and things were great. For a while. But soon enough it was revealed, the Hollow Knight had a crack, and out from this crack the infection began to leak. Now, let's talk endings to the game. There are actually 3, the not-so-good ending, the good ending, and the best ending. But I only want to discuss the first 2 endings, as well as the requirements for receiving them. The not-so-good ending involves undoing the 3 seals and confronting the Hollow Knight, who is locked away in an attempt to prolong Hallownest's success. After defeating your brother in combat, Hornet shows up and assists you in delivering the final blow. After slaying the Hollow Knight, you then begin to absorb all the affection into your own body. But the subsequent cutscene reveals that you were indeed flawed. The Radiance will begin to seep out of you as well. You've merely repeated the cycle, and you've ultimately accomplished nothing. This ending is, by far, the easiest to get, making it the default ending. Now, the good ending takes a little footwork. Before confronting the Hollow Knight, you must first obtain the King's Soul charm. The description of the King's Soul reads, "Holy charm symbolizing a union between higher beings. The bearer will slowly absorb the limitless soul contained within." Once the King's Soul is obtained, then you confront the Hollow Knight and slay him. Once again, you absorb the radiance and all of her infection. Then Hornet will become your seal. The King Soul charm made you a perfect vessel. The solution in this case wasn't to become completely empty, like the Pale King originally thought, but to be completely filled with life and willpower. This basically gives the radiance something to chew on for all of eternity. The differences between the outcomes of these two endings is so subtle, yet so important. The first ending is like 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 20. In this case, the knight was a wooden or clay vessel. He could only be used for common tasks. Of course, he wasn't able to take on the gargantuan task of sealing away the radiance. The second ending reflects 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 21. After going through a refinement process, the knight turned into a vessel made of silver and gold. He was then equipped to handle his special purpose. I think the journey that you must take to unlock the King Soul is symbolic as well. First, you must speak with the White Lady, the once Queen of Hallownest. She gives you wisdom and insight. Then you must go through an incredibly difficult and brutal gauntlet of platforming challenges to get to the Pale King's throne and claim the other half of the King Soul charm. This symbolizes what it's like for us as Christians. Speaking to the White Lady makes me think of salvation. When Jesus comes into our lives and transforms us, it's like receiving the first half of the King Soul charm. Then the sanctification process begins. This is paralleled in Hollow Knight by having to traverse the White Palace's dangerous and platforming section. It's filled with lots of failure on our part, but it's always our fault when we fail. But if we have a strong will, and we determine to make it to the end, then we are rewarded with the second half of the charm. Finally, having the King Soul is like being filled with the Holy Spirit. We have infinite wisdom and power at our disposal. We just need to learn to rely on Him and to cede to His will. So, remember how I said that the Hollow Knight turned out to be flawed? Well, it's heavily implied that he did start out completely empty, and was accidentally ruined by the Pale King himself. The White Lady states the following: "Within my roots, the weakening of the vessel I plainly feel. Only two obvious outcomes there are from such a thing. The first is inevitable on current course, regression. All minds relinquished to that pernicious plague. The second I find preferable, and would seek your aid in its occurrence, replacement. I implore you, usurp the vessel. Its supposed strength was ill-judged. It was tarnished by an idea instilled. But you are free of such blemishes. You could contain that thing inside." The key phrase here was, "It was tarnished by an idea instilled." A hidden cutscene further reveals that the Pale King treated the Hollow Knight like a son. I believe the monarch showed the Hollow Knight love, causing the son to learn how to love. This made him no longer empty, thus flawed. Unlike the Hollow Knight, we need to keep our holiness. Let's refer to Romans chapter 12, verse 2. "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, His good, pleasing, and perfect will." It's extremely important that we strive to have our holes and cracks sealed. It's also important to note that we can't fix our own holes. We can't become holy. Jesus makes us holy, but we must be willing to allow Him to make the appropriate changes in our lives. Alright guys, I think that's going to be it for tonight, so I'll let my lovely wife finish up this series next week. She'll focus on what exactly it is that we should be filling ourselves with, since we are vessels after all. So for this week's World Quest, let's delve into the Word and think about how Jesus changes us from common to holy vessels. Salvation is the most awesome thing ever, so let's meditate on it and praise Jesus for blessing us with it.